When people think of the richest people in history, they most often think of industrialists of the modern era like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, or the Carnegies. Perhaps some also name current billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Carlos Slim, or the many wealthy Arab sheiks. However, the richest person in all of history is a Malian ruler named Musa Keita I, 10th Mansa of the Mali Empire. Mansa is a title like sultan or emperor. He was so rich and extravagant in his spending that he disrupted Egypt's economy just in passing. And it is no wonder that to this day he is still considered the richest man in the world. Welcome to the Myths and Curiosities channel. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any notifications. Born in the 1280s AD, Mansa Muça expanded the Mali Empire by conquering 24 cities and their environs. When he died around AD 1337, he had amassed a fortune that is almost too great to comprehend. Adjusted for inflation, Mansa Muça I was worth over $400 billion. The runner-up, the combined wealth of the Rothschild family, may be better known. However, they are only worth $350 billion. J.D. Rockefeller is worth $340 billion, Elon Musk $226 billion, Jeff Bezos is worth $133 billion, and Bill Gates is worth $123 billion. In other words, none of the men most often associated with vast wealth come close to this African king's net worth. Mansa Keita I assumed power in 1312 and inherited an already prosperous kingdom from Mali. He would reign until 1337. Mansa was the traditional Malian title for king, and Muça was the grandnephew of founder Sundiata Keita. Mansa Muça was given the throne after his predecessor, Mansa Abubakar II, sailed out to the Atlantic with a large fleet and was never seen again. While exploration was lost, Mali was found. Mansa Muça, appointed regent while Abubakar II satisfied his curiosity about what lay beyond the horizon, would become one of the greatest rulers in the entire history of Africa. With an army of around 100,000 men, including a cavalry corps of 10,000 horses, and the talented general Saran Mandian, Mansa Muça was able to extend and maintain Mali's vast empire, doubling its territory and making it the second largest in the world. Largest at the time, second only to the Mongol Empire. Mali controlled territories as far as the Gambia and Lower Senegal in the west. In the north, tribes were subjugated along the entire length of the Western Sahara frontier. In the east, control extended as far as Gao on the Niger River, and in the south, the Beret region and the forests that would become known as the Gold Coast came under Mali's supervision. This last region was left semi-independent because gold production was always much higher when more autonomy was guaranteed. The Mali Empire would never control such a large amount of territory and natural resources under another ruler. To better govern this vast portion of land containing a multitude of tribes and ethnic groups, Mansa Muça divided his empire into provinces where each was ruled by a governor, Farba, personally chosen by him. Administration was improved with greater records kept and sent to government headquarters in Niani. The wealth of the state increased due to trade taxes, other mines and copper controlled by the Malian administration, and the imposition of tributes on conquered tribes. Mansa Muça thus became extremely wealthy, perhaps the richest person in history. Mansa Muça, like so many other devout Malian rulers before and after him, set out on a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, but when he arrived in Cairo in July of that year, he made a unique impression. The camel caravan of the ruler of Mali had crossed the Sahara, and when it arrived in Egypt, even the Sultan was amazed at the wealth this West African king brought with him. In some surveys, each of the 100 camels carried 15 kilograms of gold dust, and each of the 500 slaves carried their own 2.7 kilogram staff of gold. Add to that, hundreds more camels laden with foodstuffs and textiles, knights waving the king's red and gold standards, and an impressive human mass of servants and officers that numbered in the tens of thousands. In an extreme gesture of grandiosity, Mansa Muça I would have given so much gold and his entourage would have bought so much in the city's markets that the value of the gold dinar in Cairo dropped by 20%. In relation to the silver dirham, it took 12 years for the market, awash in gold, to recover. Egyptian merchants in particular were delighted with these unsuspecting tourists who suddenly crowded into their markets and made the most of it, driving up prices and relieving buyers of the weight of gold at any opportunity. In fact, Mansa Muça and his entourage were so profligate that they left the city in debt, a factor that contributed to later Egyptian investments in the Mali Empire so that the merchants could recover some value from the goods they had left on credit. The king of Mali gave 50,000 gold dinars to the Sultan of Egypt just as a gesture of goodwill on their first meeting. Among so many other obeisances, this ruler of the mysterious African interior, however, was treated like the royalty he was, given a palace for his 3-month stay, and praised wherever he went. One indication of the impression Mansa Muça left is that news of his visit to Cairo reached Europe. In Spain, a map designer was inspired to create the first European map detailing West Africa. Created around 1375, the map, part of the Catalan Atlas, showed Mansa Muça seated on a throne like a king, wearing an impressive golden crown, holding a golden staff in one hand and happily holding a huge nugget, or sphere, of gold in the other. There were so many tales of gold that would inspire later European explorers to brave disease, hostile tribes, and inhospitable terrain in order to find the fabled riches of Timbuktu, the golden desert city that no one knew where to locate on a map even in the 18th century. After Cairo, Mansa Muça I would have traveled through Arabia, where he bought land and shelter so that pilgrims from Mali, following his example, would have a place to stay. The king was inspired by the holy places he saw and, on his return to Mali, built a dazzling audience hall in Niani and mosques in Gao and Timbuktu. Among these is the Great Mosque in Timbuktu, also known as the Jingarubber. These buildings were designed by the famous architect Ishgal Tijin, died 1346, and also referred to as a poet, from Andalusian Granada, who was persuaded in Cairo to follow Mansa Muça when he visited this city. Arguments included 200 kilos of gold, slaves, and an estate on the banks of the Niger River. The mosque was completed in 1330, and Al-Tijin lived the remainder of his life in Mali. A royal palace, or Madugu, was built in the capital and Timbuktu, as well as fortifications to protect this city against attacks by the Tuaregs, the nomads south of the Sahara. Due to the lack of stone in the region, buildings in Mali were typically constructed with rammed earth, bench, reinforced with wood, which is often seen as external beams. Mansa Muça was also inspired by universities he saw on his pilgrimage, and he brought books and researchers to Mali. The king widely encouraged Islamic education, especially in Timbuktu, which, with its mosques, universities, and many Quranic schools, has not only become the holiest city in the Sudanese region of West Africa, but also an internationally famous center of culture and religious studies. In addition, Mansa Muça sent native religious researchers to Fez, Morocco, to learn as much as they could and return to Mali as teachers. As well as these educational connections, diplomatic connections were also made with Arab states, as was the flow of investment into Mali, as Egyptian merchants and others sought access to the lucrative movement of goods across West Africa. Mansa Muça was succeeded first by his son Mansa Keita I. Tell me in the comments what you think. And if you haven't subscribed yet, enjoy it now, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. See you in the next video.